Hello everyone. So today we're going to look at a solution to, or a modified solution rather, to exercise 11.1 in Alan Downey's Think Java book. The task in the exercise is to create a class for a tile in the Scrabble board game. We're going to do a very similar task, creating a class for a Scrabble tile. However, I'm going to use slightly more object-oriented way of doing things than Downey does in his solution. I'm going to include a toString method for printing rather than having an explicit print tile method. And I will also include a equals method. Okay, so I've already set up a project here called Tile Exercise. So what we're going to do is right-click on the source folder. This is assuming you're using Eclipse. Things work very similarly if you're using another IDE. And under your new, select class. We'll end up making two classes, one to represent the tile and one to test it. Let's just start with the tile. You don't want a main method for the tile itself, and you can ignore this warning message up here. So this creates an empty class for us. As you'll find in Downey's book, and I'll repeat for those of you who don't have the book, there are two major things that that define a Scrabble tile. First, what letter it represents, and second, what the value of the letter is in the game. So for that, we'll need two fields. Since we're going to be storing a letter and a number, we'll probably want a char for the letter and an int for the number. And we can call these something descriptive like letter and value. And since we have two simple values, our constructor will also be very simple. So we'll just have public tile to create the constructor. And all we really need to do in our constructor is to initialize our two instance variables. So we'll have a char and an int as arguments as well. We'll just call those also letter and value. And then we'll just set the value of our instance variables to the values passed in as arguments. So this dot letter equals letter. This keyword, as always, refers to this one, while this refers to this. This dot value equals value. Alright, so now there's our constructor. Simple initializations in our constructor. Oops, two different things here, value and values. And as always, just save as you go along. Now, in order for this to be useful in a wider program, we're going to have some way of getting at those values. But since it's representing a Scrabble tile, those don't change, so we don't need to have methods to set the values. So let's just create a couple of simple getter methods. We'll have a public char get letter, which will just return whatever value is stored in. We'll use this keyword just to be explicit to make it clear what we're returning. And then we'll also create a simple getter for our value instance variable. Okay, so at this point, we have a simple but useful class here to represent a tile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another class, call this one tile app, and this will be testing our new tile class, so we do want it to have the main method here. We could have written that ourselves, but it's convenient just to let Eclipse do it for you. So to test it, we'll just create a new tile, call it my tile, And we'll say that equals a new tile. Let's give it the value of C, which, if I remember correctly, has a point it's worth 3 points. That's what I was trying to say. If I remember my Scrabble correctly, C is worth 3 points. It doesn't really matter all that much. It's just the concept that's important. So now we have a new tile, so let's test our getters. We'll say system.out print line. We'll say about the value of, oops, that should be there, concatenation here. Just say my tile dot get letter then is plus my tile dot get value. So now we can test both of our getters in one statement. Now let's hit the run button up here in the toolbar. And what we should get down here is the value of C is 3. So we know that both of our getters are working. We know that our constructor is properly constructing a tile with those properties. So let's go back and implement those toString methods and equals method. Public string to string. For those of you who don't know what a toString method is it's a method that is known by the Java compiler to exist in any class definition. It's inherited. If you know what inheritance is in Java, it's inherited from the object class, which is the most basic class that exists in Java, and every class inherits from it. And anytime you have a situation, say in our tile app, where you're printing to the system out or to a file or anything like that, when you see the name of the class here just by itself, not with method calls afterwards, the Java compiler will just call the toString method to get a string representation of our tile in this case, whatever the class is that has a toString method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a string that will have the letter come first. So we'll just say letter. So we have an empty string over here, and then to that we're concatenating letter. I tend to do that just in case some versions of the compiler complain if you don't start a concatenation with an empty string here. So we'll have our letter, and then I think maybe a good representation of it is to have the value of the tile in curly brackets after the letter itself. Let's see how that works. Here's our value. We're concatenating that. And let's have a closing curly brace. Now let's try this here. We can keep that and just put it in a new one. A new output statement. Actually, let's just put our tile there to make it really clear that it's only just calling the toString method of our tile. Let's just comment this out for a sec, so all we're getting is the output of this one. And there we go. C with the 3 in curly braces. Now we have one more method to implement here, and in my version of the answer, the equals. Now, to be in keeping with the way Java defines it, I'm going to say that it can take any kind of object. And what this means is first we have to check to see if what we have is actually a tile object, because we know if it's not a tile object, then it's not going to be equal no matter what it is. So we're going to do that with Java's instance of operator. So say object instance of tile. Now this statement right here will return true if the argument obj for object is an instance of the tile class. But since we want our if to check that it's to execute if it's not, then we'll use the not operator here, or the negation operator here. And because of that, we put the instance of operation inside parentheses. And we can just go ahead and return false if that's the case, because we know if it's not an instance of the tile, then they can't be equal. Now, in order to compare tiles in Scrabble, we know that all tiles of the same letter have the same point value. So what we really need to do is just compare. Actually, wait, there's one more thing we need to do. If we get past this and we know we have a tile, then we're going to create a new tile called other. And if we know we're working with a tile because it passed the instance of test, then we will say other equals the object, but cast as a tile. If you don't know what a cast is, you can just look that up in the Java reference. It's very simple. It just turns something which is known to be a tile, but is stored in an object variable, into a tile, or any other class likewise. So now we can compare this dot letter, see if that equals other dot letter. Because they're both tile objects inside of a tile, you can use the dot instead of calling the getter. And if the letters are the same, then the tiles are equivalent, and we can return true. If they're not, then they're not equivalent, and we can return false. And so now we have a simple but complete equals method, which we can now test. So let's create a tile called tile2. Why not? Say new tile. Let's give this one the value of b, which I believe also has a point value of 3. We'll make another C, so then we can test to see if it's both equal and not equal. So let's just have an if statement. We'll say if my tile dot equals, then we can select tile2 from our dropdown, or we could write it if we wanted. My tile is we'll just say equal to tile2 colon, and then, well, let's just do that. No need to make it any more complicated. Then of course we'll need an else. Not. Then let's copy this whole thing, copy, paste, and do it for tile 3. So this first one should print out the not equal, then this one should print out they are equal. Let's try that out. Yep, my tile is not equal to tile 2, but my tile is equal to tile. I changed the prompt here. Let's try that again. There we go. My tile is equal to tile 3. Okay, so, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. But that's a really simple tile class and a tester for it. Thanks for watching.